Sometimes it's the least sexy subjects that are absolutely the most important to talk about. And today I want to talk about how we can absolutely build a better world in very real terms, not airy-fairy, if we just do this one thing that every single person has the capability of doing. Before we get into it, just a little reminder that if you enjoy my interviews and commentaries, feel free to donate on Patreon so I can continue to keep this information free for everybody. So let's dig into it. So in the 5th century BC, there was a philosopher named Heraclitus, Greek philosopher. And he's the one that coined the term character as destiny. That's what he's known for. And although he was a depressive and also called the weeping philosopher, he got this thing down. He nailed it because to me, there's no truer statement. Character is destiny. And we can look around at our lives and start looking at the people who we feel have real, true character and see how their lives turned out. But in the interim, what most of us are doing is we're going off and compromising ourselves in every single direction. We think, oh my God, you got to pick the best of the worst, so to speak. We do that with, for example, our political leaders all over the world, not just in the United States. Yeah, we have an election coming up and people are pointing fingers at each other across the aisle and all over the place. But this is true in every other country. It's a time where people are afraid of change, and we have a lot of change coming up. And our directive is to be part of that change, not continue to support the old ways. Instead, people are retrenching, going into fear, and they're compromising their integrity by embracing and voting for characters, corporations, we'll talk about this in a minute, across the board that work for them kind of in the short term, even though they absolutely are out of integrity with what we find true and good in life. And so this creates a kind of cognitive dissonance within us because we're literally ticking boxes and putting our money where our beliefs are not. And this is something, if we're going to begin creating this new world together, and I believe we are, the frequencies are pouring onto the planet throughout the cosmos for change. The frequencies of this planet are rising as they are throughout our cosmos. Every single sentient thing within this part of the quadrant of the universe is going to have to grow, is going to have to refine themselves in order to keep up and just stay in step with Earth herself. She's going through her own vibrational upward shift. We all know about this. This isn't any new information, but we keep making choices and doing things that lower our frequencies. And this is nothing but a frequency game. So first we might take a look at what is bad character. Well, first of all, it's blaming other people. It's blaming everyone around you for whatever doesn't work right in your life. And I don't mean you personally, but our lives. We see this all the time with public figures. It's lying, it's cheating, not taking responsibility. It's not listening to others, not caring for others. These are all very low quality traits. And we see this throughout the world of politics. I mean, it's almost a given, but we see it all around us in general. I think of how often we'll do business with a corporation because maybe we're getting it cheap, but we definitely don't like their business ethics. And we've all done it. We all do it, trying to save money. And this is part of the thing. Shortcuts is one of the things that actually lends to low character traits, trying to take a shortcut rather than facing things straight up and saying, okay, might take a little more time. I might have to pay a little bit more, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do my due diligence to make this work. So we start looking at the people around us in our lives. And now we're talking, I already mentioned politics, politicians, corporations that we do business with. I think we've all done a lot of business with Amazon, even though in principle, we don't particularly like what they stand for, myself included. I get that. My neighbor, I felt a little guilty. She'd never been on Amazon because she doesn't like what they stand for. And we happen to be making ice cream these days. And I sent her a link on Amazon ice cream maker. And she had trepidation and felt a little sick to her stomach that she was now in the game. And I thought, oh my God, I just corrupted a person. So it can be something as small as this, where you look at yourself and think, what am I doing here? But it's also the people that we surround ourselves with in life. This is nothing but a frequency game. The Earth's frequencies are rising throughout the cosmos. The frequencies are rising, and so are ours. So is every sentient being on this planet. Doesn't matter if you're a plant, an animal, or a human being. The frequencies are rising, and they're not going to support low traits for that much longer because they only lead to difficulty and destruction. In the end, these are self-destructive traits. So look around at the people in your life that you feel have high character. For example, I mean, my father had very high character. He didn't lie, he didn't cheat, he didn't do any side deals, and he owned a sizable corporation in the world of insurance. And he just felt he was there to serve humanity in case their houses burned down, and he gave them the best deal he could every single day. And he did the same with his family. So I was very lucky to have the opportunity to grow up under real, and my mother too, really characterologically good influences. And my dad also was the one that taught me. He said, he's from Texas, honey child, don't ever lie to yourself. If you have to tell a little white lie somewhere, tell it to someone else, but don't ever lie to yourself. And I think that's really the critical part of starting to examine where we're involving ourselves with and supporting low character. But when we start looking at people we're involved with and what we choose to surround ourselves with, even in entertainment, movies like Mean Girls, shows like The Sopranos, which I watched all the way through. And I thought, why am I doing this? And it was the oddest thing. Here's an incredibly flawed character, but I was watching to see the moments, I was looking for the moments of love where he was kind and supporting one of his friends and really took care of them because he loved them, whether he was kind to his family, his kids, kind to his wife, and kind of the softer side of how such a brutish figure in such a brutal life, where their humanity was. So I think every time I've watched a show like that, I keep hanging on, digging to see if it's going to have a silver lining, a happy ending, but oftentimes it doesn't. And I realize I'm just subjecting myself to really low frequency stuff, no less before I go to bed at night. So because I like video streaming like anyone else, I had to start changing my patterns and going retro and, watching things like Northern Exposure, where people's feelings maybe get hurt, but basically it's good people who are a little nutty in their own way. There are some bigots and racists and homophobes in there for sure, but they're called out for what they are, and people just accept each other. So that's an example of a show that I particularly appreciate now because I've decided not to do the harsh stuff where I'm looking for a shred of humanity in a character. I want to see it evident throughout. And that includes books I'm choosing to read and so forth. So, getting back to the main point of what we're choosing in our lives for our kids is the school system we're putting them with. Are their teachers operating out of character? Can we speak up and talk to them if they're not operating in good character? And what is good character anyway? We talked about bad character. What is good character? Well, it's truly the opposite of that. It is kindness, compassion, inclusiveness. It's a higher level of thinking that allows you, even if you don't agree, to listen to another person, to care about another person, even if you're not related to them. Those are the hallmarks of high character. And as we look around, we can see now poking through a few shiny little examples of this, even in the world of politics. And start thinking about some of the people up for office in whichever country you're in, and see, where have you seen someone that seems genuinely good, a genuinely kind person? Well, when I was working with Lee Harris and we were recording the book, The Future Human, which will be out soon, that book talked about these frequencies, these prevailing frequencies, and how systems have to crash and crumble. We've talked about this. We know this. They have to crash and burn. And our support of corruption, even if it's in our own thinking or the thinking of our friends and family, that has to go away. And I don't mean in a judgmental and mean way, simply in a discerning way of changing our standards to a higher frequency and asking for that of ourselves as well, because we are all in this together. And we're not going to create a better world if we maintain the support of low character. Low character is low vibrational frequencies. No way of getting around it. There's nothing you can do to put lipstick on that pig, make excuses for people who are, yeah, they're flawed, but I think I'll, support their product or vote for them anyway. I personally believe that time is over. And as the Z's were saying, and you can read it in the book if you get hold of it, they said that our political system, all systems, all institutions will be changing because we're in these 10 years of chaos. But as our political systems change, there would be beings of very high quality character. And I would even say from Linda Backman's work, Dr. Linda Backman, she does hypnotherapy on her clients and started noticing a lot of the clients aren't from around here. I mean, their soul isn't from Earth. And we would argue that many of us initially were from somewhere else long ago. And that many of the people coming in now, particularly those from interplanetary realms and the angelic realms, are coming into embodied in human bodies, incarnating in human bodies. And they're here at this critical time to start popping through and giving us a glimpse of what goodness and light is all about. So if we can start looking around and seeing who possesses these characteristics and start really honoring them, because sometimes the people that possess these characteristics, this of high character, goodness, kindness, whatever you want to call it, and it's not just subjective, we recognize it, we know it, and we say, ah, that person is a real mensch, or my grandma was such a good woman, she was the heart of the family. Everybody knows it when we see it, so it's not like we can't recognize it, we're just not putting it in its proper place. So in that case you might say, oh, so what a lovely figure, but she didn't seem to contribute much to life, she had a few kids, didn't do much in the world. No, that person offered very high frequency and heart, and they should be revered and honored for what they brought to the planet, because it's going to be our collective higher frequencies coming together that will change this game. So this brings me to one thing that my group of beings told me many years ago. They said, the one thing that would turn your planet around pretty quickly, and it's very difficult for human beings because we have been tossed into a game of competition and such, is to start releasing judgment of one another. And I mentioned this in a lot of my little videos, releasing judgment of one another. So that is factoring into this. This is part of the whole characterological thing. Once we let go of judgment of one another and we just accept each other for what we are, we can then decide, do I want to hang out with this person? Do I want to spend more or less time with them? Do I want to, frequent this particular restaurant let's talk about the restaurant industry. Maybe you like a restaurant because it has particularly lovely, warm service. And so that's why you're drawn there. Maybe it's because they have the best food in town. They're very careful about it. Maybe they have organic food. And sometimes you're just doing it because it's quick, down, dirty, and easy. And we all do that. But I would say maybe it's worth our while, instead of going out 3 times a week, maybe go out twice a week for dinner, but put our energy and our care and our dollars behind those places that actually care about us. They're doing their work for the right purpose, not just for profit. Now, there are whole movements surrounding this. I'm bringing up very kind of simple things to engage with in terms of decision making, because this is across the board. Everywhere we look, the music we listen to, the art we look at. I hope you're enjoying this video, because if you are, there are dozens more like it on my site, all supported by people like you. So if you'd like to keep this work rolling in and join our community, just click on the Patreon button at reginameredith.com. That also gives you access to insider commentary, my live book club, and other live events with special guests. So join in. Thanks. One of the things that's happening with the raising of frequencies on this planet is the absolute need to start embracing the work of artists and also musicians, to allow wherever they're going, because they're going usually into other subdimensional ranges. They go out, they see things, they bring it back, and they bring back their interpretation and put it on a canvas or on a CD. And to start allowing these frequencies of beauty, whatever you perceive as beauty, whatever's uplifting to you, to start really saturating our lives with everything we perceive as beautiful and finer. This is not a status thing. This is a soul thing. The soul craves truth and beauty. And so you can imagine what your soul is doing when it's watching you and me engage in really, really low level stuff. It's like, oh, gosh, Okay, well, let's see if we can snag her attention in a meditation somewhere when she's over this. And I can tell the difference. I can even tell the difference. Even if I'm on my cell phone in the morning, I'll usually wake up and stretch, yawn, and look at a couple cute little, bunny, kitty, puppy, baby videos just to make myself smile and feel good about life. I love it. But then if I go on too long, an extra even 5 minutes, this awful feeling starts happening in my body. I start to feel wound up. I start to feel like I'm letting myself down and like this device has taken over me. And so I put it down. So I don't usually abuse devices because this feeling happens and says, stop now. And I stop. So we know that engaging with media, we know that engaging with mainstream media in particular, which is bought and paid for by pretty low frequency companies such as pharmaceutical companies, we know that that is probably not going to find, we're not going to find refinement and upliftment going that direction. So we have to be very careful, and I've talked about this many times, of what we choose to expose ourselves to for sources of information. And while things are really getting heated, certainly in the United States with this upcoming election, I would go so far as to say if your emotions are running really hot regarding these events and people, then don't even turn on a device unless you're going to read something in text. Just take the visuals and the sounds away from it and then just start gathering information in the old-fashioned, way of digits, of reading. You might get angry, but you can manage your emotions better. And don't, because otherwise this is taking us down the same rabbit hole of emotions that we're objecting to begin with. When we find low quality and low characterological traits among these people, we're dragging ourselves right down there with it by trying to reject it and be angry at it and fight against it. Better to just calmly educate ourselves, do it in the way that is the most peaceful, particularly during these times. So I highly recommend, maybe if you're too charged, just go back to print and start taking command of your own field. Because if you're staying on your devices, the algorithms are going to whip you around and take you a lot more of the same that just pissed you off. We don't need that. We don't need to be manipulated by things that are simply trying to keep us engaged. Unconscious things that are keeping us engaged, these algorithms that are literally designed to do exactly that. Just get away from it, disengage, go back to print, even if it's on your computer. It's okay, go back to print and don't let it whip you around, because it will take you to lower frequency states. And then when you get mad, you think, I'm just going to vote for this person because I hate the other guy more. We're not thinking clearly. So that's I think one of the challenges in this time is that we're too connected in to these emotional mood swings that are happening as a result of the media that we're engaging with. So the thing about that I wanted to also talk about just briefly here is I think the reason people have let go of building characters because of the quick fix society that we're now in, and it's going to get quicker. We want everything now. We don't want to take the time, just like I talked about earlier, maybe only dine twice a week out instead of three, but only go to the places that you really believe in and support, that make the world a better place. Well, it's the same thing pretty much across the board in terms of having patience. To develop character takes time and patience and discernment that leads to wisdom. Now, for most of us, these are traits that we're trying to polish in ourselves or develop or regain if we've lost them at one point. We're trying to develop a good character again. And some of these traits, there are beings who have worked on the notion of refining their character in this area of how to show up and serve in the world in the calmest and nicest of ways. We're seeing this in a lot of little ones being born now. So we should never disregard the young people, because we look at them, and if you've spent lifetimes on this and you're coming in at this time to start asserting your presence with high character, to become a leader of some kind, whether it's at your school, whether it's going to be in your workplace down the road. This is the time where high quality souls, I shouldn't say souls, where souls that have developed high character traits are incarnating more en masse. So we can oftentimes see this kind of wisdom in these little kids, and you think, where did that come from? And it's like, shake your head. How can they know that much? How can they be so wise at such a young age? Well, it's because the frequencies they're being born into are calling forth these beings. Come to the rescue, because we've got a lot of changes to go through over the next 10 years in particular. The Z's say the chaos goes till 2033. It's going to be a wild ride. And not only that, timelines are merging and unmerging, weaving together and coming apart so fast that prediction of anything is almost impossible. And we don't like that. We want something we can hang on to. We humans don't like change, and we don't like to feel like the rug's been pulled out from under us. Well, newsflash, the rug is going to be pulled out from us in practically every way it can. So what do we have to rely on? How do we make our decisions? That's why I did this piece, is because I think one way we can make decisions that is absolutely going to take us to a more beautiful world is to start focusing on the development of our own character, the character of our children. And if we have to say goodbye to some people in our life that are just really negative influences, we can say goodbye with love. We can still send them a Christmas card or whatever, birthday cards. You can do that. But it doesn't mean you have to hang out, and you have to allow yourself to be taken down into the emotional trauma and drama. The times are not calling for that. And hanging on to the past, the whole notion of never forget is not a good idea. Yeah, intellectually, it's a good idea. If you know someone's done something really horrible, you don't want to get back in the bed with that one again. Okay, just you know that you've registered it here. You're not going to do that again. So that's very practical, useful knowledge. But to carry the emotional imprint of the victim and take that forward, low frequency, and it only leads to low character. It allows you to become a blamer and to whine. And these are not traits that are matching the times that we're in now. We've all been through rough stuff. We've all been, quote, victims of things. Every one of us has had tough challenges in life, and we can say, tick, I register that. I won't choose to get involved with a person like that again. I see it. And if there's someone in your family that has harmed you in some way, no, don't need to spend time there. We can do that, but not to keep carrying the story with us. Because as Bashar, through Daryl Anka told me, you're not just remembering, you are recreating the exact same frequencies as when that original event happened, when you keep remembering, putting these pieces, these frequencies back together again every time you dwell on something bad that's happened to you in victimhood. So this is where another really interesting point comes across. And I go back to the Z's again. They talked about this in our book, that the thing that is going to distinguish humanity is going to be that we're going to be we're going to be thinking, literally running our intelligence from the mind. We know how to do that now, down into our hearts. So it becomes qualitatively a completely different kind of intelligence, a completely different way to live. It automatically lends to less judgment or non-judgment. It allows for acceptance and care and more peaceful way of being and understanding the world around us. In fact, you can even take a moment if you want. You can close your eyes for just a moment and think of something that has been a little challenging or bothersome to you, just even in the last few hours, in the last days, you got you wound up a bit. Think about that. Just close your eyes, take a couple breaths, and now take that very thought and just drop it down into the heart. Just sit up straight enough so there are no kinks in the path, and just drop it into your heart. That very same thought, that experience that happened. Notice what happens when you do that. The quality of that event or thought completely changes. And according to the Z's, this is how all of humanity, well, they said 92% to be exact, will be living in the future. That's what we're all headed toward. It's an absolute. We're going there. We're going to start running our intelligence, not just through the mind, but through our heart. And I've had the privilege of being in a room where people were hooked up to EKGs and EEGs, heart math, and other brain technology, all at the same time, brain state technology, and watching when the stimulus came, which part of the being responds first? It's the heart. And some might argue if the stomach, the peptides in the stomach would maybe react even faster, the gut reaction we talk about. The last to know really is the conscious mind. And so right now, that's totally all we're totally reliant upon it. That's all we're really using. So to start really allowing ourselves to take these challenges and just every day maybe take a minute to drop something challenging from the head down into the heart and look at the quality of the peace and the patience that happens. Peace and patience and discretion are all part of developing high character. So just this little practice alone can help us develop that. So going back to where I originally started in this little chat, if we were all able to make our choices based on true character and surround ourselves with people that are also concerned with developing their own character. And then we respected the little ones and the old ones that already have highly developed characters. Once we make our decisions from this place, everything else falls apart. It all goes away. If you're saying, what would happen to Amazon if we said, you know what, I don't really like doing this. I'll do without, or I'll go to a local merchant. Okay, that's a tall ask. Most people aren't going to do that. I get it. But I'm saying in an extreme sense, what would happen to Amazon? Boom, it's gone. Now, I know there are a lot of wonderful artisans and merchants that sell their stuff through Amazon. So I'm not just bashing Amazon because it's here. It's going to stay here. I know that. But I'm just using as an example. What if you said, no, I'm doing business locally? There's one institution we might have some gripes with that just falls. The same is true of every other institution. Same thing with our health practitioners. If we won't go to the doctors that are just going to throw drugs and surgery at it, and we say, no, we want more from you. We want you to have real knowledge. We want you to have an innate understanding of what health is and well-being and how to restore it if we become out of balance. So the field of medicine is going to be changing dramatically. The field of education is going to be changing dramatically. All of these things are as a result of our demanding more out of not only ourselves, but the things we're engaged with and people we're engaged with around us. And that one thing is the thing that will ultimately turn this world around and take us into, well, so that we're a match with these lovely frequencies that are flowing in. Right now, we're kind of bumping up against them and it's feeling like, I don't know what's going on. It's freaking us out a bit. No, once we can calm down and focus on this one simple concept of building good, solid character in ourselves and dealing with others of good, solid character, boom, the whole game starts lifting almost overnight. So I just had to give that little message because I'm seeing glimpses of really beautiful beings coming through that, you know, if they were in your life, they would do the right thing. They'd make a decision based on wisdom and what's going to be for the best of all. And that's what we're looking for. That, I believe, is what is going to build our beautiful new world. And this is something we can all do starting this very minute together. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you might also want to consider joining Patreon, which allows me to keep all of this content free and available to everyone. And if you're looking for like-minded souls, you might also enjoy my online community called Our Neighborhood. Links to join are in the description.